Are you planning a trip to the Philippines but overwhelmed by the countless destinations? With over 7,000 islands in the country, it's easy to miss out on some hidden gems that could make your trip unforgettable. I've spent about 7 months in the Philippines, and in this video, I'll go over my top picks of where you might want to travel. Let's go. All right, let's get into it. And I'll begin here in Manila, just because many people visiting the Philippines will start and end their trips in Manila. And many people will just kind of leave immediately and they won't give Manila any time. And I think that's a mistake. There are some fun things that you can do in Manila. It is a bit of a crazy city and a cool experience. So let's start off here with the first impressions of Manila. It is a crazy city. And for me, the first impression was just how busy it was. Manila's a crazy city. There's probably 20 million plus people living in Metro Manila. There's people everywhere, all times of the day and night. It's a very busy city. The next thing that I noticed is just the traffic is horrendous. I live here in Calgary, Canada, where we don't really have a huge population and the traffic is quite good. So seeing that in Manila it's a real eye-opener. Do not underestimate the travel times in and around Manila. So if you're trying to catch a flight to the airport, give yourself a huge amount of time just because the traffic is nuts in Manila. And some other first impressions that I had, I was a bit let down by Manila at first. I'd been to other places in Southeast Asia beforehand, and Manila doesn't have places like the palaces in Bangkok or the Khao San roads. I didn't notice anything like that, so it doesn't have that kind of tourist draw that Thailand does. It's still a very fun city, Manila, but it's not nearly as touristy as other places in Southeast Asia. And large parts of Manila, it kind of looks like a giant shanty town. So the first impressions, not the most attractive city, but I think it makes up for that in that the people in the Philippines are amazing, super friendly, very accommodating, and I never had any issues in terms of my own safety. Again, I lived there for about 5 months in Manila. I walked around everywhere. I took the LRT, the MRT, I went to all different parts of the city, and I never had any issues whatsoever. So I don't think it's that dangerous of a place. I think it's very safe. Again, people are super friendly. But it's not the most touristy place in the Philippines. Again, most tourists will actually leave immediately. And from a tourist perspective, you don't need to spend a huge amount of time in Manila. You can see most of the main sites in a day or two. And if I was going to Manila for the first time, here are some of the things that I would do. And the most famous site, I would probably check out Intramuros and Fort Santiago. This is a historic walled city and the fortress that played a role in Manila's history. Around there, you've also got Rizal Park and the Manila Cathedral. It's definitely a very beautiful cathedral. If you are looking for some Western comforts, I'd probably stay around the Greenbelt Mall area or the Mall of Asia. You've got world-class shopping and entertainment in these premier malls. I would also consider staying in the Makati or BGC areas, where you've got some vibrant nightlife, upscale dining, and modern cityscapes. Now, on the topic of VGC, it's not my favorite part of Manila, to be honest. But if you actually Google, the best places in Manila, most of the people are saying go to BGC. I didn't like it that much just because I thought it was too gentrified. Like it could be like a part of many Western cities. Like it just looked too normal to me. It didn't have the same feel as the rest of Manila. So it wasn't my favorite area, but most tourists, that's probably where they're going to want to stay. I kind of like the Makati or the Pasay areas better, but that's just me. And if you're feeling adventurous, you might want to check out the Chinatown area, also called Binondo. You can find some really cool things there, and there's a thriving place. There's people everywhere, market stalls. It's quite busy. There is a nice looking church there. I think it's called the Quiapo Church. Now, I could be butchering the pronunciation, but quite interesting. If you are going there, don't make the mistake that I've done in the past where I took the LRT or the MRT, I forget which one it is, and I walked across the river to get into this area. It's probably just easier to take the Grab taxi. Grab is like Uber, and it's just a lot easier than, walking or taking the LRT. And it's quite cheap too. And if you want to stay somewhat near the airport, which I recommend, just because the traffic is horrendous, you might want to consider areas like Pasay, and the one just south of it is called Parañaque. I could be butchering that as well. Those areas, lots of nightlife there, easy to get to the airport, lots of casinos. The Mall of Asia is down there too, which is quite nice, and again, very close to the airport. And if you're staying in Manila, there's actually quite a few good day trips from the capital as well. And the first one for me would be Tagaytay and Taal Volcano. So Tagaytay is kind of cool. So you're on an island And then within the island, there's another island. And then on that island, there's a volcano. So it's pretty interesting. You got some cool views from certain areas. I can recall in the past having a really fancy buffet meal overlooking the volcano. I've actually hiked the volcano as well. So this is really cool, very scenic, and not that far from Manila. The next one is Anilao, which is in the Batangas area, maybe 2.5 hours south of Manila, depending on how bad the traffic is. This is like the original scuba diving destination of the Philippines. And to escape Manila and have world-class scuba diving that close is pretty lucky, I would say. And definitely I'd put this on my list if I was a scuba diver. And the last major day trip from Manila would be hiking around the Mount Pinatubo. You can trek and witness the stunning crater lake formed after the 1991 eruption. So this is pretty cool as well. And moving along, let's talk about North Luzon. So Luzon is the main island where Manila is. And there are a few standout locations in North Luzon that you might want to travel to. And the first one being Baler. Now, I personally have not been there yet, but it is on my list. Baler is a small surfing town. And it's actually where they filmed the movie Apocalypse Now, that surfing scene. So I'd like to go here at some point. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. But if you are into surfing, this might be a destination to look out for. Now, my favorite destination in North Luzon that I've been to in the past is called Banaue. This is where you'll see rice terraces that go all the way up the mountain. And it's an incredible sight. And the place that I went to, there were no roads. You actually had to hike into it to get there. And the views were just stunning. It was a crazy experience, and it was an experience just getting there. I can recall looking at the map in Manila thinking, this is not that far. Now, again, this is back in 2007 when I went to Banaue, the days before all the GPS and the smartphones. And I thought the actual ride wouldn't be that long. Like, it looked like a couple hundred kilometers, might take, a few hours. This trip was like 15 hours. It was raining so hard. The rain came through the roof, and the locals were they were putting gum in the ceiling to prevent the water coming in. And the air conditioning was only on one setting. It was full blast, so the bus was freezing. It was wet. It was a horrible experience getting there, but it was well worth it because the rice terraces were stunning. So I'd highly recommend this if you are thinking of going to North Luzon. And some other areas that you might want to consider if you are going to North Luzon would be Vigan, which is like a Spanish colonial town, and Baguio, which is the summer capital of the Philippines. It's known for its cool climate, pine forest, and it's got a very nice art scene as well. And the last point here on North Luzon, you might want to check out the island chain of Batanes, just off the north coast of the Philippines, known for its greenery, cliffs, just being a very scenic location. And next up, let's talk about Southeast Luzon. And the big one here would be going to the Legazpi area and looking at the Mount Mayon volcano. This is the most perfect looking volcano that I've seen in my life. It's incredibly green, incredibly symmetrical, and there are some cool sights around there. There's actually this church that was buried by lava that you can check out. And the other big ticket item around the Legazpi area would be going to Donsol for the whale shark tours. Now, they have to be in season. Don't make the mistake that I did by taking the bus all the way from Manila, and it was longer than 10 hours, I think. Long bus ride, and the whale sharks weren't even in season, so I couldn't see them. And Legazpi, it was nice, but I found it kind of boring. So once you see the volcano and if the whale sharks aren't in season, I found there wasn't all that much to do. So it could be a long bus ride just to take a few photos of a volcano. It is quite beautiful though, but I didn't find there was all that much to do around the Southeast Luzon area in terms of being a tourist. And moving along, let's talk about the island of Mindoro, one of my favorite spots in the Philippines. I must have been here 7 or 8 times now. So from Manila, it's about a 2.5 to 3 hour drive from Manila to Batangas, which is a port town. And then from Batangas to Puerto Galera on Mindoro is about an hour ferry ride. And if you are a scuba diver, I would definitely put this on your list. It's got some of the best diving in the Philippines, if not the world. So Puerto Galera is kind of the rough name for this whole region. There's different parts to it, but for the scuba diving center, that's usually located around the Sabang part of it. Now, Sabang itself is definitely an interesting place. It's kind of a place where people scuba dive all day and then party all night. So it's a bit sleazy at times, but it's fun though. And it kind of reminds me of like a pirate town. So if you are a diver and you're into some nice nightlife, I would definitely put this on your list. A very fun experience to come here. But there are some family-friendly areas around here too, specifically being White Beach. That's more of a family-friendly vibe. Very nice beach, nice restaurants and resorts. So I think it's a destination anyone can enjoy around the Puerto Galera area. So that's the main highlight of Mindoro. There's not too much else going on besides the Puerto Galera area, but if you are into scuba diving and you want to go on a liveaboard trip, there is the Apo Reef, which you can access from the western part of Mindoro, and I believe the ships leave from the San Jose area. So this is one place that you might want to look into is Apo Reef. Not to be confused with Apo Island, which is also a very good scuba diving destination, but that's off the coast of Negros, and you can access that by going to Dumaguete or Darwin, which I'll get into as we go forward here. So that's Mindoro, and moving south from there, let's talk about Boracay, which is probably one of the more famous destinations in the Philippines. And so Boracay is known for its like crystal clear waters and bright white sand beaches. This is like the classic beach vacation in the Philippines. So Boracay, definitely one of the more famous spots in the Philippines. You've got White Beach, which is renowned for its powdery white sand and crystal clear waters. Also great for water activities. You've got parasailing, kite surfing, swimming, paddle boarding. I've actually gone scuba diving in Boracay in the past, and it was pretty good. Not as good as places like Balakasag Island or Apo Island, but it was still not too bad. So if you do have some time to kill in Boracay, you might want to get your scuba license or do a day trip. Awesome nightlife in Boracay. You've got cool beach parties, fire dancing shows. Now, Boracay is definitely very popular, very famous. At the time when I was there, I was traveling solo and I got a bit bored. I think it's more suitable for big groups of people or for large families. It's kind of like your classic beach holiday. So I liked it. I thought it was one of the best beaches I've ever seen in my entire life. Humongous beach. It's wide, it's long, it's crystal clear waters, bright white sand. But if you're traveling solo, you might get a bit bored, but that's just my opinion. And next up, let's talk about Negros. So in the past, I actually went from Boracay all the way to Negros, bus boat, all the way there. It was a bit of an experience. Negros is definitely a very beautiful island, and the main ticket places to visit on Negros, I would say, would be Dumaguete and Darwin. Dumaguete is a university town. It's got a pretty cool promenade. And I like Dumaguete because it's actually a good entry point into the country. If you want to avoid Manila or avoid Cebu City, you might want to consider looking at Dumaguete. So I flew from Calgary to Vancouver to Manila. I think I landed about 6 a.m. And then from Manila, I actually got a connecting flight directly to Dumaguete. And I was on the ground in Dumaguete around 8 or 9 a.m. in the morning. And I avoided all of the anarchy of Manila. So it's a good way to get into the country, and you might want to, connect Manila, Dumaguete, and then leave from Cebu City. That might be a route to get in and out of the country. And just south of Dumaguete is a small town called Darwin, which is where I stayed at the Bongo Divers, which I highly recommend. And we did the day trip to Apo Island. So we did 3 dives, and the diving in Apo Island is incredible. This is one of the best spots in the world to dive. And so I definitely put this on your list if you are interested in scuba diving. Other than the diving in this part of the Philippines, I found Darwin to be quite small, not too much going on, but it had outstanding scuba diving. And next up, let's talk about Siquijor, which is a smaller island, and it's a very up-and-coming destination. It's becoming quite popular. And the main draw to Siquijor, it's definitely a very adventurous island. You've got multi-tiered waterfalls, crystal clear turquoise waters, good for swimming, known for its cliff diving spots, and a very nice looking shoreline. You've also got some cool colonial architecture, and it's also a bit of a mystical island where you've got a lot of folklore involving healing and spirituality. So it's a very cool up-and-coming island in the Philippines. And next up, let's talk about the island of Cebu. And I was just here a few months ago, and I'll start off here with Cebu City, which is kind of like a miniature Manila. A lot of travelers will actually bypass the city, or they won't spend too much time here. And the good thing about Cebu City is the airport is way nicer than Manila. So if you can find a way to land in Cebu City versus Manila, I would highly recommend that. I can't stand the Manila airport. It's always a miserable experience. But the Cebu airport is definitely way better. And if you are traveling to the Visayas area, definitely I would highly recommend starting your venture in Cebu City. Just way better airport. And many travelers will just leave immediately, or they won't spend too much time in Cebu City. But there are some fun things that you can do here. But I wouldn't spend a huge amount of time in Cebu City. And the first one being the Taoist Temple. That's like a Buddhist temple on a hill kind of overlooking the city, which I think is quite scenic. The main draws would be like the Fort San Pedro and the Magellan's Cross area. You can wander around there for a couple hours. You don't need a huge amount of time in Cebu City again. It's fun just to wander around, like the downtown part of Cebu City. There's all sorts of old streets and cool shops. But again, don't spend a huge amount of time here. I also spent some time on Mactan Island. I went scuba diving off the coast there. It wasn't too bad, to be honest. Not quite as good as other areas like the Apo Islands or around Bohol. But if you're trying to kill some time in Cebu City, that might be one thing that you consider. And if I were to do it all over again, I spent about 3 nights in Cebu City, and I felt after like one day of being a tourist, that was enough for me, if I'm being honest. So if I were to do it all over again, I would probably leave Moalboal and go directly on the bus to Cebu City and then right to the airport. So I'd try to time it perfectly, and so you could avoid having unnecessary time in Cebu City. Now, the city's not that bad. It's just not the best for tourists. And if you are visiting the island of Cebu, I'd highly recommend going to the place called Moalboal. I went there way back in '07, and I went again just a few months ago, and it's completely different. It's more built up now. There's more of like an expat culture that's booming there. But it's great for travelers, great for scuba divers, awesome day trips, and it's a good central location on the island of Cebu, and not that far from the Cebu city. So it's an easy place to get around on the island. And there's some pretty cool day trips, the biggest one being the Sardine Run. So you can literally just walk off the shore and swim for a little bit and see millions of sardines. So you can swim it, you can snorkel it, you can scuba dive it, you can free dive it. I did the actual scuba dive, which I'd highly recommend. To be down there for so long and seeing millions of sardines, it really is a sight to see. Without the sardines, the actual dive wouldn't be too exciting just because it's like so close to the shore and the water is a bit murky. But again, if you're in this part of the Philippines, I would highly recommend the Sardine Run. Very cool. There's all sorts of day trips around the Moalboal area. The big one here is the canyoneering in Badian, which is just like short little drive from Moalboal, maybe 20, 30 minutes tops. And this is really cool. So we zip-lined into the staging area, and the actual canyoneering, so you're jumping into these waterfalls and the current's pushing you down the valley. Super cool. I think there were 3 or 4 waterfalls, and definitely one of the best day trips I've done in my life. So I'd highly recommend the canyoneering. I also rented a motorbike and went to the Osmeña Peak in the Badian Highlands. If you enjoy renting scooters or motorbikes, this is definitely a very scenic thing to do. From the highlands, you can see the entire island and you can see like the ocean. It was very beautiful. I'd highly recommend it. Moalboal, there's also pretty good scuba diving outside of the Sardine Run. There's a place called Pescador Island. I did that. There's like a dive where you're like in this kind of skull-shaped canyon. It was very interesting. The diving in the Pescador Island, it wasn't as good as Apo Island or around Bohol, but it wasn't too far off. It was still worthwhile. And that could be because a hurricane came through in the past year or two. I think it's still recovering. And there's also day trips from Moalboal to Oslob, where you can do the whale shark tours, which is also super cool. So I'd highly recommend Moalboal. It's a very good central location to tick off a lot of these different day trips. And the last major thing that I would highly recommend if you go to the island of Cebu is to go to the very north tip and go to the island of Malapascua. This is where you can see the thresher shark. And the island itself is known to be very relaxing and just a cool spot to do some excellent scuba diving. Next up, let's talk about Bohol, which is one of the more famous islands in the Philippines and home to the famous Chocolate Hills. Now, the Chocolate Hills are over 1,200 unique geological formations resembling chocolate mounds. So very interesting, very scenic. And if you are thinking of going to the Chocolate Hills, the good thing about it is from the main tourist areas like Alona Beach, there are tons of vendors who are selling these day trips, and you can tick off most of the Bohol day trips in one day. So you've got the Chocolate Hills. From there, you'll go to the Tarsier Foundation, where you can see those tiny primates. From there, you go to the Lobok River Cruise. The cruise is actually pretty good, not too expensive, and you get a full buffet meal. The river itself is very scenic. From the Lobok River, you can stop in the man-made forest, which is interesting. And from there, there's also a zoo and a church. The church is not worth it, neither is the zoo, but they're part of the whole package. So you can tick off many of the day trips in one go if you go to Bohol. And I went to Bohol in January, not so much to see the Chocolate Hills, as I have seen that in the past before. I wanted to go scuba diving in Balakasag Island, which was outstanding, one of the best dives I've done. There's quite a few good dive sites around there. So you got Balakasag, you've got Pamilakan Island, there's Dohol Point. There's a whole bunch around the Bohol area. I'd highly recommend it if you want to get scuba certified. It's a good spot to do it. And if you are an experienced diver, there's a whole bunch of good dive sites in the Bohol area. And one very cool experience that I did in Bohol in January is the whale shark tours. So I was staying in Alona Beach, which is like the main tourist area, and they were operating tours out of a smaller town. Maybe it was like a half an hour drive from Alona Beach, and they take you out not too far, and there's for us, there was about 6 or 7 massive whale sharks. It was an amazing experience. I've heard since January, they've actually canceled the whale shark tours from Bohol. So if you are going there and you want to see the whale sharks, I would check in advance if they still have these tours, because they might have been canceled now. And if you are traveling to the Visayas area, the good thing about Bohol is you can actually land there depending on where your connecting flight is. I believe there are direct flights from places in China and Korea where you can land directly in Panglao, which is only a few kilometers from Alona Beach, and you can bypass Manila and Cebu City. So if you plan ahead, you might be able to do this and save yourself a lot of time and headache. And moving along, if you are a surfer, I would put down the island of Siargao on your list. This is where the famous Cloud9 is. So it's a world-renowned surf break that attracts surfers globally. That is just off the northwest coast of Mindanao. So again, if you are a surfer, definitely I would consider going to Siargao. And also off the north tip of Mindanao is Camiguin. Now this is a very cool volcanic island, very scenic, very Hawaiian-like. And there are some pretty cool things around Camiguin, and that's White Island. So it's a pristine sandbar offering panoramic views of Mount Hibok. And with it being a volcanic island, you've got hot springs and multiple different waterfalls, a very scenic island, and an up-and-coming destination in the Philippines. And also in Mindanao, on the far east area of the island, there's Zamboanga, or Zamboanga, I'm not sure how they pronounce it. I haven't been here yet, but I've heard it's very interesting. And there's a place called Santa Cruz Island that has a pink sand beach. Unique pink-hued sands due to crushed red Oregon pipe coral. So if you are on the island of Mindanao, this might be a place to consider as well. And next up, let's talk about Surigao Del Sur. Now, I think I'm pronouncing it properly, but I could be wrong. And so there are some interesting things here. There is the Enchanted River, which is a deep spring river known for its clear blue waters. Interesting waterfalls around here. There's one that's dubbed the Little Niagara Falls of the Philippines. Lots of interesting islands with white sand beaches and natural pools and lagoons in this Surigao del Sur area. And last on my list, but certainly not least, let's talk about Palawan. So if you're trying to decide where to go in the Philippines and you want that perfect mix of adventure and natural beauty, Palawan should be at the top of your list. It's often called the most beautiful island in the entire country. So you've got dramatic limestone cliffs, clear lagoons, world-class diving, quiet beaches that still feel untouched. You could be snorkeling over coral reefs, kayaking through hidden lagoons in El Nido, diving shipwrecks in Coron. So there's something for everyone, and it's not as commercial as other tropical destinations, so it still feels a bit raw and authentic. So if you are looking for a trip that's both peaceful, exciting, adventurous, I'd give Palawan a definite look at. Well, there you go. That's my take on the top places to go to in the Philippines. I hope you enjoyed it. And obviously like and subscribe. I'll be having more content hopefully weekly from now on. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you on the next video.